Today in Watching Your Wealth, what you need to know about investing in Bitcoin.
This is Watching Your Wealth from the Wall Street Journal. Now, from our studios in New York, here's Veronica Dagger.
This is Veronica Dagger, and you're listening to Watching Your Wealth, where you learn all you need to know about building your wealth and protecting your money. Paul Vigna is a WSJ reporter, host of the Money Beat podcast, and co-author of The Age of Cryptocurrency. Welcome, Paul.
Hello, Veronica. How are you?
Good. Great to have you here.
It's fun. This is great. I'm excited to do this one.
Fun. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's right. We love your show. We listen to it all the time. Everybody should check it out. It's great. It's really fun. Okay, so Bitcoin. Lot of comparisons. I'll admit I really don't know that much about Bitcoin, so I want to educate myself and our listeners. But I've heard comparisons that Bitcoin is the 21st century equivalent to gold. What do you think of that? Is this accurate? Is this something we should
Yeah, this is something, and look, I think the first thing you have to understand, really, when you're talking about Bitcoin, is that the entire thing is really one big experiment. It is a big experiment in trying to build a decentralized, non-state controlled currency and commodity and asset class.
Fed type of thing.
Yeah,
right?
and something that is really, and it's a fascinating experiment. I mean, I've been writing about it for a few years now, and I mean, I love writing about it. I love telling stories about it as a journalist. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. As an investor, though, it's a little scarier.
Do you personally invest in this?
No, I don't.
No.
And that's basically because, that's basically journal ethics rules.
Right, we're not
anything
allowed
that
to,
we write about, we really
Right,
should not be
true.
investing in.
Good point.
However, even if I wasn't bound by that, I probably would not invest in it myself anyhow. Yeah, because, and this is kind of getting into,
Sure.
I'm going the long way around answering your question.
That's okay.
But because it is a really kind of speculative thing. I mean, it is an experiment. And one of the interesting things about Bitcoin is that it really people argue about what it even is. So you have this one camp of people who are trying to sell it as digital gold, as the 21st century modern equivalent of gold, as gold historically being a store of value, a hedge against uncertain times, something that is not state controlled, a safe place to park your money. They're trying to say that Bitcoin is all these things, that it is easy to store, it's digital, right? It's easy. It's certainly much easier to transport than gold. I mean, you could buy gold ETF, but if you want to buy gold bars, that's very difficult. Yep. If you want to buy actual Bitcoins, that's relatively easy. So they're trying to sell it as a 21st century gold 2.0, and all these different terms. It's not a bad case to make for it, except for the fact that gold has a millennia-long history of use in all those roles. It has a history of being used as a currency, a history of being used as a store of value. It has a history that people know. Bitcoin is 9 years old, and Bitcoin is, while that 9-year history is pretty impressive, especially for, like I said, what they're trying to do, which is built something that really has never existed before, it is still only 9 years old. It still may not make it. Bitcoin,
Really?
Well, yeah. I mean,
so no, yeah.
And again, you're talking to somebody who is not a Bitcoin skeptic. I think is a fascinating thing. I really think it has a chance to make it, but nobody can say for sure that it's going to make it.
For sure. It seems so risky. I mean, that's all I hear is like risk.
Well, it is. It is. And there are two different kinds of risks. One is the risk I was just talking about, that this is an experimental thing that may not ultimately make it. If it doesn't achieve some kind of mainstream acceptance, it's not really going to go anywhere. So there's a big kind of push now to get mainstream investors interested in it, to get that kind of money in, to build up that stuff. There's always been, and it hasn't really quite succeeded, but there's always been an attempt to kind of get its sort of day-to-day usage out of this small band of real kind of libertarian, crypto-anarchist-minded, real sort of original thinkers into more of a mainstream. They've been having trouble with that. It has not really happened. It kind of got really popular really fast, and everybody who was kind of naturally interested in it got absorbed in it, and they've had a hard time kind of breaking into the mainstream.
I think maybe because people don't get it.
That people don't get it. It's hard to explain. It's hard for people who are in Bitcoin to explain what it is. it's difficult too here in the developed world. It's difficult to make a really good case that you need Bitcoin when you have cash, you have credit cards, you have payment options, you have assets where you can park your money that are safe, that have a history that it's hard to make a case for Bitcoin as an alternative when most of the things, except for the spectacular crashes, say financial panic in 2008, most of the time the system works pretty well. So it's hard for them to make the case that you need Bitcoin. So you get a lot of people who are interested in Bitcoin, but you don't have a lot of people who need Bitcoin. So it's been a hard case to make.
How are you seeing people use it? Is it just this tactical part of their portfolio, or they're using it to buy and trade stuff?
Well, it has. Again, you have to keep in mind this is a really small asset class when you compare it to anything in the traditional capital markets. But it does have it does get used in several different ways. One is there are people who are, and these are a lot of the people who invest in Bitcoin, they are buying it and they are holding it because they believe that it is going to make it. They believe it's going to go to $10,000. They believe that this is the future. So you have a lot of people who buy Bitcoins and literally just take their private key to their wallet and they just put it in a drawer somewhere and they forget about it and they are never going to spend it because they believe it is going to appreciate so far. That's one group. Okay. You do have another small group that does use it to buy and sell things online. As an online payment option, it's pretty good. I mean, it works. It's fast, it's cheap, it works well. I'm actually going to have a story out tomorrow, and there are a couple of merchants that I talked to, and there are several. The number of merchants that take it is no one really knows the exact number, but there are a lot, and
these are legit merchants.
Legit. One is Dish Network takes it, Cheap Air takes it, and I was telling the CEO of Cheap Air, Jeff Klee, and he said as a merchant he loves it. He actually likes it. Like for a merchant, it has a lot of advantages as a payment system. So he likes it. He uses it. But again, they've had that trouble kind of convincing people to use it. Then there are people that literally just use it as a speculative asset. They love the fact that this is a 24/7 market. You can buy and trade anytime. You can ramp up the leverage. There's, if you love free markets, this is the freest market that there is. There are no rules. So if you really enjoy speculating, this is your dream asset class.
I want to take it back for a second just to go back a little bit more basic. You said the word wallet. I've heard this. Explain to us what the wallet is.
It's really just a euphemism for account.
Okay.
It's an online account. That's really all it is.
Got you.
But it's a digital wallet. And a lot of the mobile payments industry has adopted that term. Apple Pay. I don't know if Apple Pay calls their mobile wallet. I think they call it a mobile wallet. But it's really it's literally your account. And what's interesting about Bitcoin is there are a couple of ways you can get one. You could go to a services company like Coinbase is a big one where they offer that as a service, and you go there. No, they don't charge you. I think if you have a really large account with them, like $1 million or more or something, they start charging you. But if you have a smaller account, they don't charge you for the service itself. So you go to Coinbase, you sign up, they give you an account, they give you a wallet, and they're basically Coinbase's model is that they're kind of responsible for that, like a traditional bank, really. You could also go directly and you can download Bitcoin's client software itself. Bitcoin is not controlled by one person. It is literally a software program that runs on a network of computers. So if you wanted to become one of those computers, you can download the Bitcoin software yourself, and you are literally your own bank. There is nobody between you and your Bitcoins, which is, a lot of people like that.
Yeah, I would imagine they do. They like
a lot of people are scared by it.
Yeah, it is a little scary and also cool at the same time. Do you need to be a coder? Do you need to be a techie really to get this, would you say?
No, but it helps. How about that? I would say no, you don't. If you're thinking Bitcoin is something I want to invest in, I think it might be the next gold. Do you need to be a coder? No. Would it really help you? I think it would. And again, as a writer, one of the things I always find fascinating about Bitcoin is what it kind of reflects back on our established financial systems, what it says about those, where it kind of shows where there might be weaknesses, where things can be improved. So I think if you're really interested in Bitcoin, I think it would help you to understand coding. I think it would help you to kind of look into the history of money, to start learning about money. Bitcoin is a big experiment in technology and economics. And if you're interested in it, it would really behoove you to kind of brush up on those things before you go and start investing in Bitcoin, because I think it'll just help you understand better what you're getting involved in.
This could be a really big question, but what do you think it says about our financial system, the fact that Bitcoin is out there right now?
I mean, personally, I think I think the problem with the financial system is that it is just not. It was built in a different age. It just really was not built for this age, and a lot of it is jury-rigged. A lot of it is slower than it needs to be. It is more convoluted than it needs to be. It is more expensive than it needs to be. And I think, especially here in the developed world, we don't see a lot of that because it's all back office functions that banks handle. We don't see it. You go to Starbucks, you buy a latte and a muffin and whatever it costs you. You swipe your card and it's done. To you, the transaction is done, right? It takes you about 4 seconds. You walk out. Yeah. That transaction will take days to clear before Starbucks gets its money from your bank. And there are a number of intermediaries that will go through. And that's just buying a cup of coffee at a corner store. It gets far more complicated if you're talking about trading securities, if you're talking about trade finance, if you're talking about all these kinds of higher value transactions within the financial system. We don't really see that, but it is going on, and banks spend billions of dollars on it. It is costly. It is time-consuming. Bitcoin is fascinating in that what it basically does is they have figured out a way to take all these functions, and I'm sorry to take up your listeners' time. So
this is interesting. I'm interested in this.
We could talk about this for hours.
I'm sure we could, yeah.
And actually, not for nothing, but I'll plug the book if you want. You can go by that. Actually,
there
are a lot, and not just mine. There are actually a lot of books now on this subject. So if you're really interested, folks, you can go online and find pretty much everything you need. But in a nutshell, what Bitcoin does is the reason all those processes are in existence is because you have a problem where you're asking two people who are not in a room with each other to trust each other. So what you need is a third party to come in and be the trusted third party and say, I will guarantee both sides of this transaction. And what we have built up is this gigantic edifice that is a global edifice. Bitcoin has figured out a way, it is really quite elegant when you understand it, to digitize that process, to automate that process in a way that you guarantee when this transaction goes through that it is legitimate, that you are not being counterfeited, that the money is really there, and that the money has gone from A to B. And it's like I said, it's really quite an elegant solution.
If we're an investor, real quickly, where should we start? Where can we get our foot in the door with Bitcoin?
The first thing I would absolutely say is just go do gobsmacking amount of research. Really read up on this. Understand it as much as you can before you put even a dime into it. Once you've done that, and if you still think you want to invest in it, like I said, you can download the software yourself, and you can buy. You can't mine anymore. It's impossible for people to do. But I mean, you would go to an exchange. You could buy Bitcoins from an exchange. You could go to Coinbase. Coinbase has the wallet server. I'm not trying to push Coinbase. They're just one that it's kind of easy because they offer it all. There are others that they will do the trading for you, and you can buy Bitcoin. You can acquire them. But really, the really, really important thing is to understand is that you should not be investing money you can't lose in this. I mean, this is a 100% speculative investment. It could make you a fortune, and you could be rich. There are all these 22-year-old coders that were involved in Bitcoin in 2012. They became millionaires overnight, but they also, some of them have gone broke. You can lose it all too. It's extremely speculative.
Good point. Educate yourself is always a good one. Thank you so much, Paul. Would you stick around and take our fun Bitcoin quiz?
At the fear of failing it, I will take it.
I'm sure you'll pass. Thanks. You stick around too.
For more insights, enable the Wall Street Journal skill on any device with Amazon Alexa. Get all of our podcasts, as well as the latest news and market updates. The Wall Street Journal. Listen ambitiously. This is Watching Your Wealth from the Wall Street Journal. Now, from our studios in New York, here's Veronica Dagger.
We're back with Money Beats' Paul Vigna, who's also the co-author of The Age of Cryptocurrency. Paul, you ready to take our fun Bitcoin quiz?
Is it fun? If I get a grade? It's not fun if I get a grade.
It's really fun. Everyone passes.
Okay,
We're
all right.
really nice here.
Then I'll take it.
Everyone gets a trophy. Okay, so what's the best Bitcoin advice you ever heard?
Okay. Best Bitcoin advice. It's going to sound weird, but I would say the best Bitcoin advice I've ever heard is actually, you'll hear this phrase a lot in Bitcoin circles. They'll say to the moon. Bitcoin is going to the moon. And it's odd given everything I just said about being careful and how speculative this is, but if you're looking at Bitcoin as an investment, this is really the great promise of it, that this thing is going to take off and it is, going to go to the moon. And there are people that really believe that. So look, if you have the money to gamble and you want to take a chance on something, this is a pretty interesting thing to take a chance on.
Sure. Worst Bitcoin advice you ever heard?
Worst Bitcoin advice. Almost paradoxically, I would say Bitcoin is a store of value. Because, again, for the same exact reason, it's an incredibly speculative asset. And it may do great. It may not. It may just wither on the vine from lack of use. So, they're trying to push it as a store of value. And I think that's interesting. But I don't know that you can really trust yet that it is a legitimate store of value.
Fill in the blank. Bitcoin can buy.
Ooh, Bitcoin can buy. Airline tickets? First thing that comes to mind, just because I was thinking of cheap air. I was talking to the CEO last week.
And fill in the blank. A Bitcoin can't buy.
Bitcoin can't buy a lot of things, actually. And it's interesting because there are always people that are trying to find ways around this. And there are a couple of startups that will offer a debit card where they're kind of doing a replacement swap where you're opening up an account with them and they're giving you a regular debit card, but it's being backed by your Bitcoin so that you can go out and use it just like a regular credit card, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. But legitimately, if you went into like virtually any store up and down 6th Avenue right here and tried to buy anything with Bitcoin, they're probably going to stare at you like you're insane. So
side eye.
I would just say, side eye. Bitcoin can't buy most things. How about that?
And Leslie, if you won $1 million in Bitcoin after tax, what would you do with it?
Oh, boy. Some of it I would take out of Bitcoin. Most of it I would take out of Bitcoin. But I would probably keep some of it in Bitcoin. If I won $1 million in Bitcoin, I would probably keep some of it in Bitcoin. I would take the rest out and put it into traditional safe investments because I'm a pretty conservative investor.
Great. Lots of fun. Thank you so much for joining us,
Paul.
Thank
you, Veronica. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. And this has been Watching Your Wealth, a production of the Wall Street Journal. I'm Veronica Dagger. For more information, check us out at WSJ.com/podcast. Thanks for listening.
For more podcasts, check us out at WSJ.com/podcasts. Become a subscriber on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and now look for us on the Google Play Music app on Android devices.